Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ladies Power Lunch. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. So we are all about evaluating and building our abundance toolkit, and it's Free Gift Friday. So abundance toolkit, Free Gift Friday, and extra special guest, Meredith Vaish. We have the best Free Gift Friday ever scheduled for today because
Wow.
Meredith's going to talk to us about pause, and she's going to talk to us about this amazing tool that we can use to evaluate our personality called Enneagram. So Meredith, welcome. Talk to us about who you are and the wonderful things that you're doing in the world. And then we shall talk about the Enneagram.
The Enneagram. Okay. Hi, everyone. I think actually most of you know me. I am Meredith Vaish. I'm a clarity coach, and my company is Pausebox. I'm over here in the Bay Area. And my quick story was I was in corporate forever, 20 plus years in strategic marketing and communications. I was had a 16-year career at Stanford, and then I just burned out. It was a little more involved than that, but basically I worked myself so hard that my entire right side of my body just went limp. It was basically a repetitive stress injury. I was forced to take a moment to heal myself. I had to confront all my fear and shame of not being a doer, letting people down, all that hustle energy that I always talk about. And then I realized I can't heal and still have this job in corporate. So I embarked on a soul sabbatical. That was my 1 year off, where I gave myself a room to kind of figure out what's next. And in that beautiful, potent time, there were two things that I spent time doing. And I felt really called, my soul felt called to really explore. And that was intuition, and how do we hook into it so that we can get our guidance. And the second was the Enneagram. So I would say about 4 years, I began I had dabbled before with Enneagram, but 4 years ago, I really dove in to the point of deep, deep reflection on the Enneagram and its kind of power of self-observation, and how you can use it to not only figure out your crap, but figure out how to work with people in your life so that you're not constantly reacting to their crap. So I found it an invaluable tool. That's probably the only time the word crap has been used in an Enneagram definition.
Well, here's the thing. Meredith.
Yeah.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have perhaps done every single personality profile tool known to mankind.
You're a junkie.
If there's a quiz that somebody has developed, I'm like, oh, quiz. I got to do it. And I do. And so then I go down these rabbit holes.
Yes.
Very famous rabbit hole that I have gone down has been the human design rabbit hole. And I enjoy it so much. And, you do these certifications and you do all these different things and you learn all these different things. And it's tons of fun learning all this stuff. I learned about Enneagram many years ago. I learned about DISC. I learned about all these different ones. And I think I am a 2 in Enneagram. I think I'm a social 2. I think my wing is 1.
You're throwing out all the stuff.
I have a whole bunch of things that I think, but I don't even know what any of this stuff means. So can you give us just a little bit of background behind what this whole Enneagram is all about? Because I think I'm not the only one who perhaps has a little bit of knowledge. And you know how they say a little bit of knowledge is a terrible thing.
Dangerous. I'll give you a very practical history of the Enneagram. It is an ancient body of work that in the 1915, a person came in and actually structured it so that we could use it as we see it today. His name is Gurdjieff, and he was kind of a metaphysical guy. So what you'll find with the Enneagram, and this is what so resonated to me, is there's this deep, deep, deep spiritual dimension to it. And so it's not just what's your personality, and what are your strengths and weaknesses. Like, I think we can get that in a lot of different places, but the Enneagram is so deep because it really is the lens with which you see the world. And so right there, you understand that you have a bias, you have a preference, you have a filter where you view the world. And what are we always doing? We're always creating stories. And what are they always based on? Our filter. So just exploring the Enneagram is probably the fastest, cheapest way to get like a good psychological evaluation of where are my hangups. And for me, it was a place where I could get validated. Like, oh, no wonder I do blah, 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 blah. It's incredibly validating to see your patterns. And so I found it a very efficient way to kind of wake up to some of my stuff that I wasn't really aware of, but also a very comforting place to say, oh, that's why I'm really gifted. I am really gifted in that. And here it is. That's true. That's who I am. By the way, I'm a 4, which in the Enneagram world means I'm an individualist, which doesn't mean much other than my strengths are that I'm incredibly deep. I can hold beauty and almost emotion, tons of emotion. The weaknesses are I can be a little moody. My mother always called me moody, and I was like, oh, now I know why. Hypersensitive, very empathic. So for a 4 to go through the world, it can be, if I'm not aware of my filter, it can be a very unforgiving experience, right? Because I'm so sensitive, I'm so deep. I want only to talk about truth. And when I encounter in the world false people or false messages, I get a little, in my youth, I would get very spun out by that. So now I'm like, oh, now I get it. I get what my strengths are. I get what my sort of shadow self is. And it helps me orient so that I can be way more purposeful with my decisions, my behaviors, my emotions. Like, it's just a level of self-awareness that I think all of us need. And that's what I found in the Enneagram. What I do want to talk about is, because I'm sure the folks who are going to listen to this have like a spectrum of experience with the Enneagram. Bonnie says she's kind of a novice or beginner. Wendy, what about you? Have you heard about the Enneagram? What's your number? Do you know?
Yes, I'm a 2. I'm a helper,
Yes,
and
okay.
I'm pretty understand it pretty well, and I use it as part of my
Yeah.
decision making.
Okay. Okay. Beautiful. So I think that's what I want to talk about first is like, what are the common myths around the Enneagram? Because we all carry some wrong information about what the Enneagram is about. Number one, really nobody can type you. You have to type yourself. So this is not about you naming your family members and saying, well, clearly they're a 7 and they're like a dysfunctional 7. And it's not about that. This is about a self-awareness tool. So only you can type yourself. Obviously, you have assessments and guidance from coaches. And I've known people who come in as one number and then they sit with that for a couple of years and they realize, I'm another number, and they get to do that. So that's their call. So the other thing is our numbers. A lot of people think that our numbers change over time. We're actually born in a number or a type or personality. We're born with kind of a neurological lens to the world. Whatever our wounding was in our very, very infancy, that's kind of what triggers your type. So it's not going to dance around. Now, there's always going to be a number that you most embody, and then there's going to be a lot that you're really you have a lot of affinity for. And so when Davia was saying, I'm a 2 with a subtype social with a wing 1, all of that, there's so much complexity in the Enneagram. It's a lot like human design. It could take forever to really, truly explore the depths. But what you want to know is, even though you are predominantly one type, you do spend a lot of time in relationship to other types, right? And they show up differently. So for example, I'm a 4. I have such a strong 3 wing, which is achiever. And my entire business is meant to serve the hustlers, achievers, people who are getting it done. Why? Because that's a huge part of my energy. Though when I type myself, I identify most as 4. My childhood wound is most consistent with the 4, which is abandonment, basically. So those were some of the common myths. Nobody can type you. We are just one type, but we have lots. Think of it as a spectrum. When you get an assessment, you get your top scores. You're kind of a lot of those top 3, but you have to pick one, because if you don't pick one, exploring the Enneagram is nearly impossible because of the complexity. So pick one, go with it, see how it resonates, and you are that number for the rest of your life, and unless you decide to change it. And that's kind of a deep, profound conversation. It's not just I want to be a 3 because they're successful, so I'm a 3. There's a lot of people who do that. Anyway, what other questions are up for people around Enneagram? And I can go there.
Oh, I saw that Amy had a question. Amy, you want to unmute and ask your
good.
question?
Hi, Meredith. How are you? I was just wondering, is there one assessment better than another? Like, where do you go to start? Because
Yeah.
I know I have taken it before, but I don't recall where it all came from, what I was and all that.
That's a great question. And I think there are so many assessments. Again, you find the one that fits for you, but where I always go, the holy grail for me is the Enneagram Institute.com, I think. Maybe it's a .org. $12 test. It takes you about 30 minutes. It's pretty involved, but I've seen really consistent results, and the schools that I've gone to reference that Enneagram Institute as kind of the Cadillac. That being said, there's been a prolific explosion of interest in the Enneagram. So a lot of people have their own models, and some don't even have a test you can take. You have to actually have a conversation with a coach. They're all really valuable, but my benchmark is Enneagram Institute.
Perfect.
Yeah, great question. So I was wondering, I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit about the benefits, and then you guys pop in with your questions as they come up. So we talked about this lens to see the world, right? It is, when you start reading about your number, you're going to identify that you have some biases, or you have some proclivities towards certain thoughts, actions, emotions. And what's so liberating about studying the Enneagram is that you can liberate yourself from those reactive patterns. At least you can identify them. Actually, liberating yourself probably requires a lot of embodiment and perhaps a little coaching, but you can get a long way just by studying the Enneagram itself. I studied in a narrative tradition, so I want to share a resource with all of you that I found really helpful. So you can, I don't have my biggest book. I have so many books on Enneagram, and you can read your type and it's helpful. But if you are like me, I need to see it. I need to hear it. I need to see how it's embodied. And so there's what's called the narrative tradition. And you can go to narrativeenneagram.com, or you could go to Beatrice Chestnut. This is on YouTube. She does what's called panels. So if you have a suspicion, I'm a 2, and you want to go find out, am I really? Let me just explore that a bit more. She brings a panel of 2s, and you get to hear how they react to life, how they make decisions, what their wounds are, what stories they tell about themselves. And that is such a powerful way to discern your Enneagram type. So if you've just been a book person and you've just gotten the test results, I highly recommend you search on YouTube for Enneagram panels of your type number, and it's usually about an hour and a half conversation, and you will find either that's your tribe, or you'll say mostly, but not quite, and you can still keep looking. So that's my most favorite resource for typing. And when I work with my clients, I always point them to those resources so that they can decide for themselves, like, yeah, this jives, or there's a lot there, but not quite. So definitely the oral tradition. I'm reading a fun book right now. Enneagram's getting a lot of play when Amy Porterfield does a podcast on it. So her latest one was this interview with Ian Morgan, the story of you. And what was so intriguing about the story of you, and I wouldn't say he's like pillar of, Enneagram font of wisdom, but he has such a cool take on the practicality of how our Enneagram is the foundation for our old stories and how you can start telling a new story. And that to me is so intriguing because we all tell stories all the time about who we are, what our life meant to us, who we, what our role is in the world. And a lot of that's done from your default thinking. So this is kind of an entree into like, what would life be like if you actually proactively told your story through the strength of your Enneagram number and not the shadow of it. Yeah. Big thumbs up from Wendy there. Any comment about that? Is that how you used it?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love that you said that because I actually pulled out my assessment.
Uh-huh.
And when I was looking at I like how the main thing I like about the Enneagram is that it's not shaming. It's like, these are just this is just part of who you are, and it makes sense. And so there's compassion around that. And I look at when it says like when you can get in conflict with, or when you're at your best.
Mm-hmm.
And literally when I read the in conflict with, I'm like, oh, I recognize that. That feels like versions of myself before.
Yeah.
And I can sneak into that, but then I can get out of it. And I'm like, oh, I can actually see some self-actualization here where I'm doing more of the at best because now I have an awareness.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. I
Yeah.
love that. So on the shaming thing, I had a really, really powerful experience as I was diving into the Enneagram because at the time I was studying, there was a group called the Enneagram Prison Project. And they use the Enneagram in prisons to help liberate and self-awareness of the inmates. I got to go to the famous prison up here called San Quentin and meet and talk with the men in that facility who had devoted years to their Enneagram work. And I saw firsthand how transformational it was. Now, granted, this kind of work appeals to the men who have the capacity to read and understand. I was part of a project where we went to the women's jails, who women are there for maybe 3 months to a year, and they offered this program too. And the women that showed up in that group, I was on a panel of 4, so I was there to kind of educate them what a 4 energy looks like. And there is nothing that cuts the BS like getting deep into Enneagram work, because it is just so human and authentic. And the women in that group were mesmerized. Now, these are a lot of women who women in jail feel double threatened, right? They're in jail and they're women. So they don't share. But the Enneagram really woke them up and had them sharing their vulnerability. To be in jail and show vulnerability is very threatening. So just that gave me just a sense for the power of the work and the healing power of this work. So highly recommend you check out the Enneagram Prison Project, EPP. If you want to see their work, they also teach a lot of courses, and obviously supporting their effort is hugely important in the world. So where else can I take you on Enneagram Friday?
Well, here's the deal. We like to think that this is, a show that gives practical recommendations. So my question for you, Meredith, is, as people launch into their exploration of Enneagram, what are some of the do's and don'ts that you recommend for going into this? I know I am already feeling a little hesitant, because I know for me, I'm already feeling a little bit like, oh my goodness, this is going to be another rabbit hole for me to go down.
Mm,
But what are some of the do's and don'ts that you
do's and
would say
don'ts.
as we embark on this journey of exploring the Enneagram?
Yeah. Mm. Well, I've covered some don'ts. So it's not about judging others. So people are not their number, right? We are very complex humans. The number is an entry point. So don't overly use it with compassion, use it with the intention to understand someone, not the intention to like, they're just an unhealthy 7, or oh, such a 3, or can't even believe that 1 is just possible. Those come up, like those judgments come up, and the Enneagram is really an invitation to understand that we're all part of this incredible human experience, and we're all coming at it through our own lens. And I think that's why I was drawn to it, because I really needed to understand that there were 8 other ways that people see the world, at least, not to mention their wings and their subtypes. Like, you start to develop a really healthy compassion for just where people are at and where they're coming from. And it's not wrong. And it's not just because it's not your way. So, and I have used this with my family, my daughters especially. It gave me a great insight into who they're becoming, and less judgment because they weren't doing everything my way. So I highly recommend using it for yourself, encouraging your loved ones to get into it as well, so you can have these kind of conversations, because these are deep, opening, validating, comforting conversations. Excuse me. I recommend you listen to the podcast and you watch the YouTubes, because there's a lot of free content out there that really augments the books and the assessments. So we covered how that's going to open you up to much more conversation around who you are, but also how other people are showing up in your life. It's really fun to do Enneagram on your parents. It's not fair because they didn't choose the number unless they're telling you what their number is. But there are some patterns there that you're like, I could probably see that this person was in this place, and that's why we had this disconnect, or that's why he wasn't available for X or Y or Z, and it wasn't about me. So there's a lot of healing that can be done through looking at it from your parent, your family of origin. What else can I say? I love working with coaches that know how to manage the Enneagram.
I have a question, and I see that Bonnie has one too.
Oh, good.
I would love for you to, Meredith, share an example of how Enneagram has been supportive, for example, of a client that you have worked with. And then once you've shared that, can we take Bonnie's question?
Yeah, totally. So this is so relevant because I'm working with a 9. 9s are known as the mediators, and in stress, they tend to lose themselves and like they don't have their own agenda. It's more than just overgiving. It's like, I don't even exist, only you exist. I am whatever you are. Whatever you need to be, that's what I am. That's their stress point. In their most gifted point, they are these incredible lovers of oneness, and they can hold space like nobody else. So I have a client, and she is working through what does it look like to be an evolved 9, because she's been a very functional 9 all of her life. She's got her personal traumas, and she's in her retirement, and she's like, I know that there's evolution to do, and I want to do it. So what I love about the Enneagram and how I used it with her, because she is so absent of her own awareness of her own agenda and destiny, the Enneagram has, I think Wendy referenced it, these, what does level 3 look like? What does level 4 look like? What does level 5 look like? So we actually use that as a transformational intention. We look at levels 4 and 5 and say, who would you have to be that energy, to be that expressed? And then we back into it and say, okay, if, using your voice in this authentic and powerful way is an attribute of level 4 or level 5, what does that look like for us tomorrow? So it's like an incredibly practical way of saying, let's find your vision. And for people who don't have access to that very easily, Enneagram is a great way to get there. And then what can you do now to start becoming that person?
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that
Yeah.
so much.
Especially for the 9s in your life. Yeah. Because they're like, I don't know, what do you want? What do you want me to be? So Bonnie, what's your question?
You have to unmute, Bonnie. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I actually have two. One, you said it's deeply spiritual. So can you speak more to the spiritual part of it?
Yes. In fact, I'm looking for my book. I will share a book reference for you.
Thank
Because
you.
really, when I embarked on pause, I needed for my own journeying, my own spiritual journeying, I wanted a focus. And there are writers who take the Enneagram and put it into a spiritual context. So there are spiritual focus for each of the types. And I found it incredibly insightful. And when I design pause days for people, I go to their number, their type, and we play with those spiritual intentions. So it's a little bit more than personality intentions or life intentions. It's like my spiritual evolution intention. So there's a shortcut there. Yeah,
that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. And then my other question is about spouses. So if you know your spouse's number and your spouse is willing to play along.
Yes.
Do you see that helping people's relationships?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, my husband does not have as much interest in the Enneagram, though he willingly took a test and he identified himself. And I can so understand him better because he's a 6. And 6s are all about just constantly scanning for threat and what's going to go wrong. He's not particularly interested in talking about spiritual evolution with me, but it helps me not feel invalidated because I'm like, I get it. That's not your gig. Your gig is all these other gifts. And I can still love you and relate to you and value the skill set you're bringing in. But yeah, he's not quite on that journey with me, but I have heard of couples who both get into this and the quality of conversation is amazing. And you
seems
can be
like
vulnerable.
It would be. Yeah. It seems like it would be because it takes I would think it would take the personal piece out of it. So so you're not pointing a finger, I'm not pointing, we're not pointing fingers, however that looks,
it's
like
just my pattern. I'm just showing up this way. Yeah.
That seems like it would be a really neutral way to work
you
with
nailed it. Yeah.
couples. Yeah, that's awesome.
Beautiful. Thanks for bringing that forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is such a conversation that we could really dive into so much more deeply. And so Meredith, I am going to have to invite you back to continue this conversation.
I'd love that.
I would like to invite you to give away a free gift to our audience today.
Yes, please.
What would you like to give us, Meredith?
Well, I am happy to provide an Enneagram assessment if you haven't already done one, and an hour consult of just what you can take away from that. And I can point you to some resources. And so you're like set up. It's an Enneagram kit.
So I'm going to invite you to please, could you choose a number? I'm just making sure that I got everybody, even the people who are joining us. And I want to say thank you to everybody who's joined us over on our Ladies Power Lunch Facebook group. Just making sure I got everybody who joined us. Could you choose a number, please, between 1 and 20?
Ooh, let's do 12.
And our very, very lucky winner, who is always a winner in my book, is Amy Flores Young. Amy
yay!
You are our winner
play with Amy
today.
That's
and
fun.
Of course, every single person who has joined us on our call today is a winner. How can people connect with you, Meredith? Everybody now wants more information. Everybody wants to hop on a VIP day with you so that they can have their own Enneagram experience with you and have their own pause based on their Enneagram experience, how can they do that?
Perfect. I would love to hear from you. You can obviously DM me in Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and my website is pauseboxco.com.
Awesome.
And you can ping me there as well.
Beautiful.
I'm looking forward to it.
This has been an outstanding conversation.
Fun.
We've really had a lively audience, both over here on our Facebook group, and we've had a lively conversation here in our Zoom studios. I just want to say one other thing, just a little housekeeping thing. We are in the process of getting together, gathering our people for our upcoming Ladies Power Lunch Fall Summit. And I know you guys are saying, but
Yay.
it's spring.
But it's summer.
How could you guys be doing that already? But guys, we are calling in the people who are going to be on the stage with us for the Ladies Power Lunch Fall Summit, the people who are going to be a part of the Ladies Power Lunch anthology for the fall. And we're almost complete. Spirit has spoken to me and has said, we are going to be complete at 20. We are at 18. So we need to call in 2 more people for our circle to be complete. And I feel like we're going to be complete by the end of this month. I don't know. I'm getting that distinct feeling. So if you're in the sound of my voice and you feel like you're one of those 2 people that's left out there, or if you know somebody who is going to be a good fit for that, then just reach out to me. You can reach out to me on social media or in any of the other places that I hang out. And I am happy to talk to you about being a part of our anthology and being a part of our upcoming summit. Thank you, everybody,
Wonderful.
for tuning in. Thank you, Meredith, for being a part of our show today. Thank you, everybody who came. I am so excited that you guys joined the Friday party. It was so much fun. And I can't wait to see you guys on the next show. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. Bye.